That's some of the defense's closing argument. Not an easy job for this jury in this case. I want to talk more about what the jury is going to be going through as they continue their deliberations today. So joining me right now is Cathy Russon, our senior trial producer, who's been at the courtroom each day and has been reporting back to us live. Cathy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I want to get an understanding of, now that the jury's in deliberations, we were covering it this weekend, what's the feeling? What's the feeling in the courtroom, in the community? We're all waiting for a verdict. Is there a concern that we might get a mistrial again?
Oh, that's absolutely. I'd say there's a high percentage of that. I will tell you, to comment on that defense closing, for me, this time around, this trial is even more murky than it was the first time around. That cell phone evidence is very, very tricky, I think, for the prosecution, because he tries to say that they're exactly at the same parking lot in Taco Bell at the same time. Well, anyone that knows, like, cell phone testimony, you can't ping at the exact spot. And he kept saying that. They're both exactly at Tellus's house. They're both exactly at M&M. Well, all that stuff, you can't get exact. And that's what she was trying to say about the two towers were in two different towns, and there's not one in their actual town. So I think that is very confusing, and I'm not even sure it's very accurate. So that's to that. As far as the jury goes, one interesting note is there are 9 black people and 3 white people on the jury, and the judge chose the foreperson, which I've only seen in one other trial. You never ever see that. And he didn't choose the foreperson last time, and he chose a white woman. That may mean nothing whatsoever. However, the interesting thing about her, during jury questioning, when they were selecting the jury, she said she had watched the Oxygen series on this case.
Are you serious? She watched that?
She watched the first 2 episodes, because then jury selection was right after that. And she said that, and she was questioned by both sides, and she was allowed on this jury, and now she's the foreperson.
That's extremely bizarre and very problematic in my eyes, and wow, that's very strange to hear. I mean, there's certain things in this case that are a little weird. I mean, on top of the fact that we knew the jury, didn't they send out a note yesterday? We've been deliberating for about 4 hours and 45 minutes now. Do we have to come back with a verdict right now? And the judge came back, said, hey, listen, if at all possible, come back with a verdict, but if not, you can continue tomorrow. I mean, there's some weird aspects.
Absolutely. That wording, in my opinion, was wrong by the judge. He could have said that differently. Now, I will say that I think he has good intentions for this jury. He wants them to get home to their families and to their lives.
Right.
And with sequential juries, we have seen deliberations on Saturdays and Sundays before. So I don't think any of that is unusual. But it was pretty early in the day, like when they first said, here's the interesting thing. He called them out to get a status about after 4 hours and said, are you making progress? Do you think going home and coming back would make a difference? And the foreperson said, I think we're making progress. And he said, okay, we'll order you dinner. And then right after that, like 15 minutes later, they sent a note out and said, we just want to go home or to the hotel.
Wow. I mean, it's not easy being on that jury, and let alone in this case. It's a really tough job. Cathy, thanks for reporting back to us about what's been happening. And if there's an update, please let us know. We're hoping to get a verdict today, and if there is ultimately a mistrial, we'll have a lot to talk about what that means. So, Cathy Russon, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're playing you some testimony you might have missed because we were live this weekend in Jessica Chambers, but we have a development in the courtroom. I want to bring back on Cathy Russon, our senior trial producer, who is there in that Mississippi courtroom. Cathy, what's the latest development in court? We were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Okay, let me just briefly go over what happened last year. Last year, one of the media photographers accidentally filmed the jury. Wasn't his fault. He was outside doing some B-roll, and their van drove by. It was never broadcasted. It was never posted anywhere. He was found in contempt of court and sentenced to 2 years, and that ended up being suspended. This judge was not taking it, even though no one ever saw that, and it wasn't his fault. This year, sometime this week, it wasn't today, somebody snuck a cell phone into the courtroom. You know, that's why I don't spend a lot of time in the courtroom, because there's no electronics. So, and then this is just a spectator. She took a picture of, and they said she took a picture of the jury and posted it on her Facebook page. They saw it, they know who she is, and they're going to pick her up right now.
Do we have any indication about why this woman would have done this?
No idea, not a clue. Everyone knows that's the biggest no-no in a courtroom. I don't know who she is. I don't know if she's related to either side. She's just a spectator off the street. I don't know. But when she is brought in, we will live stream that.
Absolutely, we will. And, you know, Jonna Spilbor, who's with us right now, mentioned a good point, Cathy, that is it possible that this person didn't like the way this case was going one way or another and hoped to taint the process by getting a mistrial if this jury was somehow, you know, tainted? If their pictures are out in the public and this is a very publicized case, that could be dangerous for them.
That's definitely a possibility. They thought that. However, we talked to the sheriff after the judge announced this, and he said he does not believe this is going to cause a mistrial. So we'll see. Okay,
we're going to see. Cathy, get back into that courtroom. We're going to cover it live here, and we'll talk more about it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So we are going to be live in that courtroom today, one way or another. You know, I got to say, we started the day thinking we'd get into that courtroom to talk about the jury verdict, and maybe we'll get it today. But it sounds like the first thing that we're going to cover is this judge really laying down the law, no pun intended, against this person who took the picture. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned here on Law and Crime. All right, everybody, we're cutting out of that clip because we are live right now with our very own Cathy Russon, senior trial producer, who's at that courtroom, and she has some updates for us. What's going on, Cathy?
Hi, Jesse. The jury just sent out a note saying that they are deadlocked, that they cannot reach a unanimous decision. The judge gave the form of the Allen charge, which is basically go back, consider everyone else's opinions, listen carefully, and go back to deliberating. So they just walked back out. The jurors, I went into the courtroom for that. The faces on the jurors do not look like they are going to come to an agreement.
Wow.
Everybody was sort of looking down, kind of arms folded. One man, as he walked in, stared at Jessica's family on the front row.
So this is not something, we talked about this earlier, that this might happen. Have you gotten any sense about what the prosecution will do? I'm sure this is something that they anticipated this might happen. Have you gotten any sense if they would try this case again or what would ultimately happen to Quentin Tellis?
No, I have no sense in that. They want him. They believe he's the killer. They want justice for Jessica. So they very well could do a third time around.
What was the reaction from Jessica Chambers' family when this news came down that the jury is currently deadlocked?
Dad was kind of head down, and everyone else was stoic. I think I'm not going to guess what they were thinking, but it was very. I didn't expect it that soon after coming back today, quite frankly. And here's the other interesting thing is they have never sent any notes out wanting to see anything again, wanting to read anything again, nothing.
You know, it's one of those cases that you're on either side of it. And I was talking to Jonna Spilbor about it earlier. Is there just some cases that you just put forward to a jury and they can't decide one way or another because it's so ambiguous? This might be one of those cases. But that's not the only update that we have, Cathy. I believe you also have an update on what happened to that person that improperly took a picture of the jury and posted it to their social media page.
Yes. First, I want to correct something I said earlier. I said that the photographer that accidentally filmed jurors last year, he was not sentenced to 2 years. 2 years is the max that anyone can get for this. He was sentenced to 30 days, and it was suspended. So I just wanted to correct that.
Right.
This time, the judge did say in open court that he wants to punish her to any extent he can. We have word now that she is being brought here. I think she turned herself in, and that she is being brought here. She will go before the judge. We had heard since the last time I talked to you that might not happen, but now that is going to happen. So, of course, that will be live streamed when that happens. And then I will let you know more after that.
Yeah, I wonder, I hope he asks, why did you do this? Because
right, me too.
It doesn't make any sense unless this is a person who wanted a mistrial and felt that this case was not going the way that they wanted it to go and hoped to get a new jury and sabotage the case. That may be. We'll get a better understanding when this goes live. Final question to you, Cathy, before I let you go back. You know, do we have any sense of how long the jury will continue their deliberations, how long they were instructed to go back, go for an hour, 2 hours, rest of the day? Do we have any idea?
No instruction. The judge doesn't give that instruction when they read this kind of a charge to the jury. So we could hear back in 5 minutes. No idea.
Okay. We'll stand by. Cathy Russon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to a break on our end. These are some really big developments. Imagine another mistrial in the Jessica Chambers case. What does that mean moving forward? Will the state continue to prosecute Quentin Tellis and go forward? I mean, this is a very costly trial, and this will go on for maybe a third time, but maybe the jury will come back with a verdict. We'll have to see. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to Law&Crime Network. I got to tell you, there are so many moving pieces in this studio. It is funny. Great crew to work with. They have been going 24/7, but nobody on the Jessica Chambers case has been more intimately involved, more fascinated about the case, giving us more data than the infamous Law&Crime Cathy Russon, who is at the courthouse. How you doing, Cathy?
Hi, Bob. I'm doing great.
Okay, so I got Gene Rossi on with us. We've been dying to talk to you. There's a lot of moving pieces here. Let's clear up one thing. Do we know what went on there with this photo issue, supposedly with the juror? Or I hear it kind of petered out, if you will.
Yes, it was confusing information, that is for sure. When each official we asked, we felt like we had a different answer. But this is what we know for sure. The judge came into open court today and said, I've been told that there was someone in the courtroom yesterday who brought in a phone with a camera and took pictures and posted on their Facebook pictures of the jury. That's almost verbatim. And then he went on to say what the penalty for that is and how unacceptable that is, and on and on and on. Okay, that was that. Then later, a colleague here spoke to the sheriff, who said they know who it is and they're going to pick her up and question her about it. Then I personally spoke to the chief of police about 30 minutes ago, and he said they went to her. She showed him her phone. There was a video on it that she took outside the courthouse. No jurors were shown. So as of this moment, there's no action taken.
Okay, amazing. Great reporting. Thank you. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about, Cathy, is, and we've been debating about a lot, obviously, for obvious reasons, and we had that Twitter poll that was out there on the Law&Crime Network, and I was here with John Spilbor, who was a little disappointed that 20+% of the people were either not guilty or, couldn't make the choice of guilt, and that could represent even any one singular individual on a jury. How bad has this Derek thing in the courtroom, you're watching it, how is the jury reacting as the prosecutor tries to thread a needle here and telling them to disregard that, essentially?
Well, their reactions are really not reactions. There hasn't been anything, especially during the area. They don't give a whole lot away. Sometimes I would see more jurors kind of looking around than other jurors, and a lot of that was when they were showing all the video surveillance from the M&M gas station showing Quentin and Jessica. I thought most of them were pretty intent, but there's a couple of them who are just kind of looking around, which I think that's an important piece of evidence. But you never, ever know what a juror is thinking, ever. So I'm not going to even guess that.
Right. In your mind, did the prosecution, do you think, to the satisfaction of the community on the outside, if you will, satisfied with the explanation of the experts that say that she was unable, the victim, Jessica Chambers, to be able to say Eric or Derek? Or do you think that that is still up in the air and why we're in a mistrial scenario right now, potentially?
Well, as far as community, outside the courthouse are only TELUS supporters, and they have gathered here today more than any other day. And, of course, their signs say things like "Find Eric," "Set Quentin free," and they have signs that say "Justice for Jessica," but "Find Eric." So, and they're doing a lot of chanting in that today. So that's what I know about the community that's just here. I will tell you from my observation of covering both trials that the prosecution has a real problem with Eric, and I don't think they overcame that.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. The defense put a case on this time, and they did not. In the first trial, they put on 3 witnesses. By my estimation, the first 2 plausibly helped the defense. Actually, the first one clearly did. The second one, I believe, did. The third one, I think, kind of blew up, and the prosecutor did a good job on cross. What were your sentiments when you were watching? Was it the same, or did you see it differently?
I really, in my personal opinion, and I'm certainly not a lawyer trying this case, I don't think the defense needed to put anyone on. They did put anyone on last time. I don't think they needed to. I think their case is good because she named her killer. And it comes back to that every single time for me and for a lot of people. It wasn't just one person that heard it, or 2 or 3. The prosecution brought in 10 people. The prosecution brought in 10 people that said Jessica said Eric, and they were in different spots when she was being questioned. They were in 2 different locations when she was being questioned. and 10 people testified Eric. I don't know how the jury gets past that.
I mean no disrespect to the victim's family when I say this, because they're not at fault for this. But as a prosecutor myself, I would have serious trepidation. I don't mind trying a hard case. I tried a lot of hard murder cases, but I would have serious trepidation if I were to believe those witnesses. And these are cops and EMS people, and they were asking specific questions. She was giving direct answers that I may be getting it wrong. And obviously, two juries are struggling with that. Cathy, we have Gene Rossi with us, one of the best on the Law and Crime Network in terms of giving us analysis, trained over 1,000 lawyers, and is a great analyst. He's been watching the case. Gene, do you have any questions of Cathy?
Yes, I do. Cathy, it's good to meet you over Skype. And I wish I were down there, because I like trying cases, but I also love watching. I have one easy question for you. One question. How did the judge pick the foreperson of the jury, and why?
Okay, so this was, for me, it's very unusual. I probably covered, I don't know, a couple hundred cases. And one time, in all of those times, one time I saw this where a judge took the foreperson. It was like in North Carolina, I think. Other than that, I've never seen it since. He did not pick the foreperson last time. That was a fiasco, because they didn't know what unanimous meant. So I think that's why he chose them this time. He said, I don't have verbatim, he said something about he's been watching her and thinks that she'll do a good job. Something like that. It was very brief. And he chose her. So I don't know. Now people are talking about how she was one of the only 3 white people and he chose her. Does that mean anything? But she is the one that said during jury selection that she had watched the first 2 episodes of the Oxygen series on this case. And she said that during jury selection, she disclosed that. They still chose her, and now she ends up as foreperson. That Oxygen series, in my opinion, is slanted to the defense.
I'm sorry, Cathy, you're cutting up a little bit. You think that slants in favor of the defense?
I said the foreperson disclosed that she watched the Oxygen series that's going on right now about Jessica Chambers, and that is slanted to the defense, that series. So she saw the first 2 episodes before jury selection.
Well, I don't know about any of this, but I'll tell you, he didn't. Did he give? Let me just ask straight out. When he did this maneuver by picking the foreperson, did he explain why he was doing that on the record?
Yes, but I don't have the verbatim, but it was very short. Something like, I've been watching you and how well you pay attention, and I think you'll do a good job as just kind of directing this jury, and we really need to pick someone that can fill out the forms. It was very kind of generic, but he did say that, he'd been paying attention to the jury and thought she would do a good job.
All right, Cathy, I assume he also told the jurors that foreperson would have no more weight or credibility with respect to what the decision is, other than more of a ministerial administrative function. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. He just said he needs someone to kind of lead the discussion, but also to fill out the form. So he did make it clear that not one is more important than the other.
Okay, so Cathy, let me ask you, in the courtroom when you're there, what is the vibe? Is it still split like it was in the beginning of the case in terms of racial lines? And if so, is this because the community believes that the prosecution's got it wrong and that there's a guy named Eric out there who did this, and a black man is being charged for it a second time who is not guilty, who is innocent?
Yeah, well, we talked about this before, only because it's just something that I observed when I went into the very first day, and it just struck me. But it could be nothing more than the 2 families. So Quint's side of the courtroom is all black, and Jessica's side of the courtroom is all white. It could just simply be that's the races of the victim and the defendant, and those are the families and friends of those 2. But it is a very, I don't know, it just was kind of not shocking to me when you walk in and see that, not one of the other race was on the opposite side, not one. So it was just interesting.
Is there any interaction amongst the families in the courtroom or in the hallway? Is there a lot of bad blood, or are they keeping the peace there?
No, it's not bad blood. I went through, when I was going through the metal detector to get in yesterday during one of the sessions we went into, Jessica's dad was there, and he let a member of Tell's family member, he's like, you go first. So, there's no mean people here. We don't see any interactions really at all, though. They kind of, when they come out and have a smoke break or whatever, Jessica's family, they're on the other side of the courthouse from where I see Tellis' family members.
Okay. Hey, Gene, anything else?
No, that was great. That was great. Thank
you. Yeah, Cathy, no, I'm curious, when you're watching, I've been very impressed with the defense lawyer in this case in terms of each side has evidence that they have to present. I really love her cadence, her tone, her right-to-the-point attitude, and hitting the most specific points that are really driving in a very polite way and acts to the prosecutor's case. What are your thoughts?
Oh, no, first of all, I think there's attorneys that are great on both sides, but I really like this defense team. I think Alex Peterson and Darla Palmer are on top of it. They're both, neither one of them are loud spoken. There's not a lot of histrionics going on in the courtroom with them. But they're also not just monotone and not caring. They're actually very likable people in person. I don't know how people feel watching the trial, but in person they're very likable, and so I know that the jury thinks that too.
Okay, and the judge seems very squared away to me. A little bit of a wobbliness there with the foreperson, perhaps, maybe not. But he seems like, why is it moving so quickly through the weekend and all these things? I've never seen anything like it.
Oh, I've seen this before. Because the jury's sequestered, we've covered cases when a jury's sequestered, they'll always have court on Saturday, and then 2 other times I've seen it on a Sunday. He wants to get them back to their families. He doesn't want upset jurors. They can't do anything on a Saturday and a Sunday in Batesville. There's really nothing to do here. And he wants to get it done.
Cathy, I have another half minute with you, and I guess I'll throw it to you. What is the thing that has surprised you the most after having watched this entire trial that we in the studio and the audience would not really be picking up on?
Surprised me. I would say not really. Now, there's not really anything that you haven't seen on the live stream. For me, the most interesting part was actually going on the jury view and seeing those places. Very helpful for the jury, I believe.
Yeah, and there's nothing like bringing them to the scene. Hey, Cathy Russon from the Law&Crime Network, I want to thank you for your time because my time is coming to an end. That means your time is coming to an end, and my good friend Gene Rossi's time is coming to an end. Aaron Keller is going to be picking it up from 3 to 5. Thank you so much, Cathy. We'll be talking to you shortly. Guys, we are in the Jessica Chambers case. Aaron's going to be taking over at a perfect time. Maybe they'll come back with a verdict today or not be able to come back at all. Nevertheless, he's going to be carrying you through. I will be back later in the week on Wednesday from 12 to 3. It's always an honor and privilege, and I want to thank all the staff. I want to thank Dan Abrams. I want to thank the producers and the tech people. It's been a pleasure. My blessings to you, and I'll see you Wednesday from 12 to 3.
We're going to continue to break this case down this afternoon. This is a big surprise. Cathy Russon, senior trial producer here at Law&Crime, was there in Mississippi for this entire case. Cathy, your reaction to hearing this?
I'm not surprised at all. I wasn't surprised from the beginning or the end. We always knew this was a tough case for those jurors. And, I mean, this case is tough. If they go after him a third time, it'll be shocking because they have no new evidence.
Well, we thought they would have no new evidence this time around, but then it turned around. They trolled out this speech pathologist who said, "Oh, this wasn't really Eric or Derek that the victim was saying," and then they brought forth this woman who said that she picked up the hitchhiker. So they did try to bring some new evidence this time around. Is it possible that there's something else out there, or look, is it possible that prosecutors are just going to dial this charge down, even if they want to continue to go after this particular defendant?
I don't know how magically more new evidence it's going to show up after all this time, but you never know. I will say that Quentin Tellis's mom left the courtroom. We all tried to get a statement from her. She waved everyone off, got in her Suburban, and drove off very quickly. And now we're waiting outside for the Chambers family to exit.
What's the mood there locally, Cathy, upon hearing that this is another hung jury?
Okay, so the same Tellis supporters that were here this morning doing a lot of shouting and having signs up in support, they bust out of the courtroom and were very vocal. Some are saying this is innocent. You cannot try him again. He needs to be free. Some were cheering. Like I said, Tellis's family appeared to not be happy. And they rushed out and waved everyone off and got in a car and left.
That's interesting. You said they appeared not to be happy?
Well, they want him found not guilty. And so that's what that appeared to be, because they know now there's still no ending to this.
It could go on yet another time. Any word from prosecutors yet there, Cathy? Have they given any indication where they might go with this, or are they still collecting their thoughts at this early point?
No information. We do expect them to make a statement and we will either bring that live if that's possible, or I'll be reporting on it.
Okay, so we're hoping to be able to bring that to you folks live. We also have Matt Mangino. He's joining us here on the Law and Crime Network. Matt, are you there? Never mind. Okay, sorry about that. Law and Crime Editor-in-Chief Rachel Stockman here along with me now. Rachel, how many times are we going to try Quentin Tellis to see if he's the guy who killed Jessica Chambers?
Listen, I think the prosecutor's office would get a lot of scrutiny if they retried this case a third time. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. In other words, I think there's going to be a third trial.
Hey,
I wouldn't be surprised either. Kathy, I'm sorry, did you want to chime in?
the prosecutor's speaking right now.
Okay, can you put the phone up to the prosecutor?
I am right now.
Okay. We can't.
Last time, assess them, figure out where we go from here. I mean, I can't get into the minds of jurors, obviously. But this was, I've done this 25 years, and this is probably the single most attentive, hardworking jury that we've ever had. And as the judge said to him, and I agree wholeheartedly with the judge, they did their job. They just couldn't all agree. I'm not going to say that here today. We just got to sit down and assess things. He's got some time limits running on some things in Louisiana that we got to get him back down there for. So it's some things we'll have to look at. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to, I can't reveal the content of any of those jury sentences. Looking back, no, absolutely no, absolutely not. We've talked about that. We've talked about, for the last year, how do we make ourselves better? And we felt like bringing the speech pathologist in would make us better. We felt like once we found Miss Flowers, we felt like that made us better. There were just a lot of different things that we felt like made our case much, much better. And but obviously we had 12 wonderful jurors that paid attention, that did their job, and they just couldn't all agree. Well, obviously she couldn't identify. She could not remember who she picked up. And I'm going to sit there and ask a witness to say something that I know is not, what's in her memory. And when we interviewed her back a while back, we asked her if she could remember him. She did pick Quentin Tellis out of mind, but she said, "I've seen this person somewhere before." And when we asked her, "Is this the person that you picked up?" And she said, "I can't say for 100% certain." So, obviously we went with what she said, what she told us.
I don't testify this time. Do you think the jury believed her? I know you brought in witnesses.
No, I don't think the jury believed her at all. The feedback that I was getting was that not from the jury, but from others, was that the jury wanted Big Mike, people to hear from Mike from the last trial. Quentin's interview with the police admitted that Big Mike had gone to Nashville, and but we made a decision to go ahead and put him on the stand. Obviously, they're upset. They're they wanted resolution of this case just like we all did, and I've talked to them numerous times. Yes. I just tell them what's going on. I mean, I've always been truthful with them, and I'm not going to be anything but truthful with them. John, real quick, while we have can you say something to that person that comes forward? I would ask him to come forward. If anybody has any further information, we need it. We need.
Okay, did you guys hear that?
We
Yes.
heard most of it, Kathy. Basically, the prosecutor saying he could not get in the mind of jurors. He's been doing this for 25 years. He said that this jury was the single most attentive jury that he'd ever seen. I could have swore that I heard some reports from the courtroom that some of them were nodding off and not taking notes.
Yeah, sorry, we have a train going through. That's why I walked away from the presser. Here's the key points from that. He's not going to say if they're going to try him again yet. He said what I picked up on for the first time is what he just said is he's going to let Louisiana take care of him before they give another try at him here.
So it seems at this point, Kathy, it's unclear if Quentin Tellis is going to stand trial for a third time for the murder of Jessica Chambers. That's certainly interesting. So they're going to wait for the other case to move forward before making a decision. What do you think the sentiment there, Kathy, is? Do you think the community would want a third trial?
Hey, let me interrupt 1 minute. The defense attorneys are now speaking to the media.
Okay. Okay, as we wait for the defense attorneys, we can't quite hear them yet. The defense attorneys for Quentin Tellis, according to Kathy, are about to speak. Kathy, are they there?
Would like to.
Okay, there we go.
There's the defense.
Okay, it's a bit hard to hear because we're trying to transmit this through a phone, but Cathy Russon, who's been our senior trial producer at the Jessica Chambers trial, tells us defense attorneys for Quentin Tellis are about to make remarks. Of course, this is a huge victory for them. I'm hearing a little bit of it. Let's see if we can dip in and hear what they're saying.
It's there and it's not there. So look, I mean, again, usually any shot at a mistrial, Rachel, as you know, is a sign that the state has a weak case, and oftentimes it's a sign to prosecutors to back the charges off rather than go full throttle for another trial. So, rather than try to make it a full-blown murder trial, maybe make it a manslaughter case or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility if they did move forward with a third trial, that they could try him on some of the lesser charges. But then again, you're going to be up against the same conflict that the jurors were wrestling with during this trial. Is Jessica repeatedly said the name of another man as to being the person who did it.
Yeah,
so that's the problem.
That is true. That's the problem. But then prosecutors can go in front of jurors and say, look, we've got a couple things that don't play exactly in our favor. That's why we didn't go for the whole enchilada here. We're going for a lesser charge, and we're going to let you make the decision on whether it's beyond a reasonable doubt that this individual did it. But we're being... I don't want to say honest, because that's not what it is, but we're sort of showing that we've got a weak card in the deck, so we're not going to bet all our chips at once.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and I hope after Kathy speaks with the defense attorneys for Quentin Tellis, she'll jump back on the line to tell us what they said. Obviously, I'm sure they're having a bit of a celebration. In terms of next steps for Quentin Tellis, I'd be interested to hear from Kathy if we know if he's going to be released tonight or if it's a process of a couple of days. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for the inmate to be released.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's facing another murder charge in Louisiana, which is why we just heard.
So he might be transferred to Louisiana
custody. He may
custody.
be headed down there. We're going to have to wait and see exactly who's going to get dibs on him. And again, is that going to involve? I mean, I know warrants from state to state require governor involvement. I mean, maybe that's going to require executive branch action in these various states to get the prisoners transferred, or discussion between prison wardens. They got to figure out where he's going to go in Louisiana. That is, if they send him down that way. So a lot going on here, folks. In the last couple of minutes, a mistrial in the Jessica Chambers case, because bottom line, jurors said earlier today that they were not able to reach unanimous verdict. They once again came forward after reviewing some evidence, and they were still stuck. They were still deadlocked. So the judge declared a mistrial the second time around for Quentin Tellis, the defendant facing murder charges with with regards to the death of Jessica Chambers in Mississippi several years ago. Cathy Russon, I think, is still on the line with us. At least I hope she just sent me a message here. I was hoping that she would get back on the line to sort of recap what the defense attorneys said outside the courthouse there in Mississippi, because they walked out, I'm assuming, probably not jubilant, because this was not an acquittal, but with some degree of elation, because a mistrial is a sign that the state has a weak case or that the state presented its case weakly. My analysis of this case is that the state did not hit its strong evidence during the closing arguments, and that's part of the reason why this resulted in a hung jury. The state kept trying to refute over and over again that Jessica Chambers was thought to have uttered the words Eric or Derek. The state kept going back to that over and over again, even though the state had better evidence that could have made the case that the state was trying to make. But the state didn't focus on the strongest evidence in the state's possession. The state kept going back to the evidence that was strongest for the defense, kept trying to refute it. Look, certainly the state had to refute it, but the state could have dialed things back and said, okay, look, we know that she said this. Our experts addressed that. She may have not been making any intelligible comments, but let's look at all the other evidence that points to Quentin Tellis. And the state really didn't phrase things that way. They just kept going over and over and over again, those comments, Eric or Derek, and that's where things got stuck. I'm hoping Cathy Russon is back on the line with us anytime soon here. Rachel, what do you think? Is your analysis that the state really could have done a stronger job with this?
Yeah, I think they missed the burden several times. I don't think the closings were a slam dunk. And I think that there were too many holes in this case and reasonable doubt that left the jurors quite confused. And again, we've said it over and over again, the issue with the Eric Derek. We had, as Cathy Russon said earlier, we had 10 first responders, very credible people. These aren't just, your average witnesses. These are paramedics, firefighters, the fire chief, all saying that Jessica Chambers said that a Eric or a Derek did it to her. When you have evidence like that, plus, and I think we now have Cathy Russon back on the line. She's been at the Jessica Chambers trial for us, gavel to gavel, watched the whole thing. Cathy, we weren't able to hear any of the defense attorneys. I know you were trying to put up the phone to their mouths. Can you tell us what they said?
Yes, Darla Palmer is the only one that spoke. Well, by the time I ran over there, she's the only one that was speaking. She said that this mistrial is a not guilty for them. She said she doesn't know if the state was planning to retry. So I asked her, I said, John Champion just said that he's going to let Louisiana get him first and then he would decide. And she said, oh, I don't know. I don't represent him in that case. But the big thing she said is the jury was split 6-6.
That's interesting, Cathy, because that's not a straight break down the racial lines, as I understand it.
Not at all. It was 9-3, and they were split 6-6, according to the defense.
So the defense must have at least gotten that either out of the judge or out of somebody else, but that's a pretty, that is an even split. Now, and I'm trying to remember, forgive me if I'm wrong here, Cathy, but wasn't the first case split pretty close down the middle? Did we ever hear?
It was. I believe it was 7-5, but it was pretty close down the middle.
So if we've got two cases now, and I'm going to really have to dust off those old notes from the first Quentin Tellis trial to try to remember the exact breakdown on that. Maybe, Rachel, you can dig into that here, or I can when you
Yes.
take back over. Something like that. When a case is split that tight down the middle, that's a sign that the state really has some issues with reasonable doubt, Cathy.
Of course. I mean, look, we've had two trials, and the juries are split in half. I don't know what would happen to make them think they could get a unanimous verdict the third time around. I do believe he's facing serious charges, murder charges in Louisiana. From what I have read of that case and seen of that case, that's a much stronger case against him. So if he's found guilty and sentenced to life in that case, then that might make up their minds here.
They could hold on to things there. There's not a statute of limitations on murder, so they could basically just sit on it. And then if anything happens in Louisiana, they could try to get a second bite at him. I could see that happening. But a lot of times states really want to convict people up front when the witnesses are fresh and whatnot, Cathy, because, you know, what if there's a parole issue or something like that in Louisiana? We're going to take a quick break here on the Law and Crime Network, back with more analysis on the Jessica Chambers case, which just moments ago resulted in a mistrial. Cathy, are you still on the line with us?
I am.
Okay, so as it goes to the mood there, you know, we've heard a little bit from the Tellis family, or I should say their actions spoke words, but how do you think this is going to play in the broader community there?
I don't know. Like I said, there's never been anyone outside that are supporters of the Chambers family. That just means they weren't out here with signs and all of that. There were a lot out here. I'd say 20 to 30 out here from the Tellis supporters, not necessarily family, that had all their signs out here, and they had different reactions for them when they came out. They had, "He's innocent, let him go," and they just had kind of like hooping and hollering like it was sort of a win. So that was the reaction. At this very moment, this place has cleared out. There's no one left here but the media.
Such a difficult day, a difficult time. A lot of people going home unhappy. Cathy Russon, you've been there for us through the duration. We appreciate your hard work out in the field. Law and Crime Editor-in-Chief Rachel Stockman, appreciate your analysis around the table here.
Very momentous day, and we'll certainly be watching to see what happens in the future in this case, Aaron.
Certainly we will. I am definitely curious. Again, a 6-6 split, according to defense attorneys in the retrial of Quentin Tellis. That means no unanimous decision and a second mistrial for the man accused of killing Jessica Chambers. Our live coverage is going to end here on the Law and Crime Network. We hope you will join us back here tomorrow when we pick things up at 9 a.m. For now, this is Aaron Keller, and for everyone at Law and Crime, have a very good evening.